Hey everybody, hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving night and boy am I full. Not done with the evening. We're going to be watching, both my sons want to watch a show called Stranger Things. So we're going to be watching that. It's kind of like a 1980s alien sort of a show. Yeah, I hope you had a wonderful time with your family. And we're going to continue going through Andrew's investigation. Do have some great things coming up. I am going to revisit the Are You Lonesome Tonight with some new research. That'll probably begin, I don't know, maybe it'll begin Monday or Tuesday. And of course, we'll continue reading. We're almost done with Child Bride. We'll continue reading Elvis in June. And we will continue reading Me and Elvis, the Charlie Hodge book. But anyways, if it's something you don't want to watch, you want to keep watching the series that we're doing, just remember you can click on Joe Sin's Rare Elvis Photos, or whatever the name of the channel ends up being, but you can click on that, and then you'll see a menu across the top, and one of them is going to be playlist. You click on playlist, and you'll see the title of whatever book it is, and hopefully I can get enough episodes up there to satisfy everybody so you can continue reading. And there's going to be some time where I do 5-10 videos in a day and kind of get caught up, so don't worry, I will. Now that things are they're slowing down a little bit into the year, going to be taking more time off. I've got a lot of paid time off built up in my job because I've been working nonstop. All right, so we're on page 6 of Andrew's investigation, so here we go. Suzanne Finstad is finally at the conclusion of her Loving Elvis series, had no option but to explain her findings. Elvis was taught by Gladys to be kind and respectful to women, especially since they all lived in the religious South. Respectfully, intimacy was to be reserved after marriage, which is a far cry from what is happening today. No wonder every broadcast, when it's about Elvis and Priscilla, it goes like this. When Elvis found a lover, since she was so lonely, as Elvis was having affairs with all of his co-stars and other women who couldn't stop giving themselves to him, Priscilla should have her fun too. Importantly, Priscilla should have a life of her own. If she is respected and adored by the person she wants to be with, come on, even if you're married. But that is the story basically given by Priscilla. Just even recently in interviewing her new memoir, sometimes she forgets what she's even saying. We were much off better being separated. There was no pressure whatsoever. We could do what we wanted. Elvis would call me even in the middle of the night, and we would talk for hours. One night, he called while I was sleeping. Oh, but I had a boyfriend, so I had to sneak to another room. Luckily, my boyfriend was a sound sleeper. Oh, by the way now, I was not cheating. Elvis also had a girlfriend. Every time Elvis was always cheating, Priscilla's narrative was always intimacy with Anne Margaret, Shelley Fabares, Nancy Sinatra. But where is the proof? There is proof on Priscilla's continuous encounters. She was intimate with Steve Peck, Mike Stone, Michael Edwards, who wrote a book, What They Did, and what he did to Lisa Marie under the custody of Priscilla, and of course Marco Garcia Garibaldi, with whom Priscilla had a child named Navarone. But there are some strong allegations and accusations on Elvis that need to be explained. But my research came up with very little. In the 1970s, after the comeback special, Priscilla regretted her affair with Steve Peck. She called him Mark, of course. Steve got cold feet right after Elvis's performance. Priscilla took Steve there, and the next day Steve assigned a new instructor for Priscilla. What a blow for Priscilla. Time for a new suspect, and since Elvis took Priscilla to a karate event, Priscilla found her man. But was it for love? No, only for her personal desires. But the go-ahead was sparked by, at that time, there were 4 women accusing Elvis of having their child. I was only able to document one by the name of Patricia Ann Parker, as she went to court and newspapers covered the whole procedure. Priscilla was furious with jealousy and vengeance. She wrote in a letter that only surfaced in 2018, I know I can do anything I want to, but Elvis, how can he do this to me? A child, how can he? That is the main reason Priscilla left Elvis for Mike. Priscilla now only says in her new memoir, "I did not leave Elvis for Mike Stone. She made a big mistake, angered, confused, and jealous." But since it took 4 years for the courts to prove that the accusation was false, by DNA evidence, Priscilla and Mike became intimate, both deciding as they had little money. Mike was only getting $25,000 a year to get money through a nice divorce from Elvis. As still in 1973, the court verdict was not confirmed, but Priscilla had already in early 1973 told Mike to leave and get his own apartment, and Priscilla became rich as planned. Now, Andrew is going to document Priscilla. Priscilla Presley was born May 24, 1945, and is the former wife of Elvis Presley from 1967 to 1973, leaving Elvis already in 1971 for a karate instructor who was only making $25,000 a year. She later had numerous relationships with Terry O'Neill, Robert Kardashian, Michael Edwards, Marco Garcia Garibaldi, besides regretting her first affair with her dance instructor Steve Peck in 1968. Her main desire in life was to be an actress, not a housewife with children. She portrayed Jenna Wade on the television series Dallas from 1983 to 1988, and Jane Spencer in the Naked Gun film series from 1988 to 1994. On September 13, 1959, 14-year-old Priscilla Presley met 24-year-old Elvis Presley at a party in Bad Nauheim, West Germany, during military service. Priscilla immediately during lovemaking wanted to consummate the relationship as she was instructed. As reported, the objective was to win Elvis by marrying him and immediately to become wealthy, as the bobbleheads had 5 children. Elvis declined immediately, as his career would certainly be affected, so Priscilla became worried about Elvis rekindling his relationship with Anita Wood, whom he had dated before and after his overseas service, but Priscilla also had other problems. According to biographer Suzanne Finstead, Priscilla was dating boys from her high school and seriously, namely Ron Tapp and Jamie Lindbergh. Priscilla was already very active and what one may call street smart. It is very unfortunate that Elvis never found out about it. I'll pause right there. If Elvis had found out about it, there would be no Elvis and Priscilla, and there would be no Lisa Marie. There'd be a different reality. Maybe there'd be a child. Maybe there'd be more children. Maybe Elvis would have married Anne Margaret. Maybe Elvis would have eventually married Anita Wood. Who knows, right? Her keeping the reality of who she was and what she was doing from Elvis, which was a lot easier to do back then, right? Same thing for guys. A lot easier to hide things from guys. Guys from girls. During that time period. Now we got the internet. We got Facebook. We used to have MySpace. You got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Nobody can hide anything anymore. Unless you get a serious publicist, like there's a lot of country artists that I know that have hidden a lot of things that y'all would be shocked. Anyways, money can buy that. And I guess Elvis probably could have hid some of that stuff. But Priscilla certainly couldn't have if it was in this day and age. All right, let's get back to it. It's very unfortunate that Elvis never found out about it. Now, after Elvis returned to the United States, Priscilla constantly wrote letters wanting to come see him, and of course, her parents allowed her to come in the summer of '62, and Elvis was thrilled. Now, my research found that Elvis was heartbroken at that time, as in 1961, he was filming Blue Hawaii with Joan Blackman, and in the movie magazines, it was announced that the press was saying that Elvis wanted to marry Joan. Elvis even requested that she be his co-star in his next movie, Kid Galahad, in 1962, which is probably my favorite Elvis movie, by the way. Unfortunately, everything fizzled as Joan was already married and both had to part their separate ways. Now, if Elvis did marry Joan, Priscilla would automatically be history. So Priscilla got lucky, kind of like the song. Well, I got lucky. She got lucky. And was with Elvis in '62 and enjoyed herself so much and begged her parents to go full-time to Graceland to fulfill her marriage duties. No begging was needed. She was instructed to complete her mission in mid-March 1963. Now, Andrew says, I've reviewed 4 hours of Priscilla's home movies with Elvis that she stole from the Stanley brothers. They had the best times of their lives for the 4 years they were recording. Now, 4 hours. Andrew, did you send that to me? I haven't stuck the thumb drive into the computer or the TV yet. If you haven't, I would love to have that, by the way. Reviewed 4 hours of Priscilla's home movies with Elvis that she stole from the Stanley brothers. They had the best times of their lives for the 4 years, and they were recording. Oh, they had the best time of their lives for the 4 years they were recording. That some married couples don't even have in their lifetime. No wonder Priscilla says, I loved him then. But Priscilla had a major problem with Anne Margaret since Elvis was seeing her for over a year in '64. She believed that he was intimate with her. But this was false. Both were religious and they did talk about marriage, and both Anne and Elvis never acknowledged that it even happened. Now, I've got to say, not that it's necessarily the gospel. A lot of the guys said that they heard stuff going on, but that's not always the case. You know, they could have been playing a prank and making things squeak and hitting the wall and, you know, the stuff that, you know, they're actors, right? Give them something to talk about. That was always the kind of thing back in the day. Make sure people think you're with this person and that person, and but Anne Margaret has never said anything. And I don't know. I mean, she was a very sexual person when it came to her identity back then, and the movies that she did after Elvis. And you would think that somebody might say something if something actually happened. But at the same time, if you loved somebody, you might not say something, right? So, you know, I appreciate your opinion, Andrew, and I don't. Once again, I'm on the fence about it. Could they have gone all the way? Sure, but if Elvis regarded Anne as somebody to marry, maybe not. Maybe he learned a lesson earlier in life, perhaps too, not to do that, not to put yourself out that way and get your heart broken, or whatever, you know. And I think some of y'all know what I'm talking about the Are You Lonesome Tonight book. But regardless, back to this. These 4 hours of videos that she stole from the Stanley brothers sure showed something, that they enjoyed each other a lot. And so Priscilla was the one in all of her relations that actually went all the way, according to Andrew, and it wasn't Elvis. Elvis flirted, you know, but he didn't complete the deed with Anne, according to what Andrew thinks. Lisa Marie wrote in her own book that Priscilla told her that she was intimate as early as when she was 18 years old. Now, that's exactly in early '64. But with whom it was, who knows? It couldn't have been Elvis, or he would have had to marry Priscilla right then and now. Now, did Priscilla say that she had been intimate at 18, but truly it was before with Curry Grant, before with Ron Tapp, you know, before with Jamie Lindbergh? Parents don't always tell their kids the truth, but you're certainly not going to tell your kids that you were intimate at 18 and it not be true, right? Why would you do that? It would make no sense to make up something that, in a sense, maybe didn't set a good example or a good precedent. You would tell them if it was true, as early as 18. That also could mean as early as 17 or younger, all the way down to the age that we know. Priscilla from 1964 to 1966 was constantly accusing Elvis of having romantic affairs with his film co-stars. The press was initiating gossip, but Priscilla, thinking of losing Elvis to any of them, and with her being amorous, sexual, with her past relationship, she was furious. Elvis would say, all those stories are just rumors for publicity. And every time Priscilla would reply, you lie. Now, no wonder the script was written that Elvis was no wonder the script was written that Elvis was who was having the affairs, while Priscilla was always lonely by herself with no friends. Just the opposite, as Priscilla was an attractive woman, and there were reports that she was very friendly with a couple of mafia members, one that was married, besides all the girlfriends going shopping and entertaining at events. There was a report that some of the girls told Vernon that she had a tendency to flirt. Vernon confronted her, as we know he did, by telling Priscilla not to bother his working staff as they always had work to do. But somehow Vernon knew more than we think. Priscilla, in one of her interviews, said, "I had a very good relationship with Vernon. She must have told him, be nice, or Elvis will have to look elsewhere." But luck came again to Priscilla because Elvis, just before Christmas, 1966, proposed reportedly, prompted by Colonel Parker's RCA moral clause. Priscilla became very happy and told all how passionate he had become, but told her to wait for the final act until after marriage. Now, certainly Priscilla must have said things that could not wait, as Elvis said, "I'm not saying we can't do other things. It's just the actual encounter. I want to save it." Now, by this saying by Elvis, can we all agree that Elvis was having intimate affairs, as Priscilla and the whole media is asserting? No. Besides being spiritual and religious, the simple answer is he was afraid in getting a transmitted disease and also believed that the pill was not fully protecting. Yet, as his third last girlfriend Sheila Ryan said, Elvis always had this mania that babies may spring up suddenly. That's why I left him for another man. Now, this is probably the best time to bring up a story about Elvis that relates here. Oh, Andrew's going to talk about Lucy. So, like I said, I hadn't read this. This is fresh to me, so I can respond honestly, the honest reactions, and so y'all can have your own honest introspective reactions and see what mine are too. So, here we go. And once I don't really know where Andrew stands on this, he might not believe it, might not agree with it, might disagree, and that's perfectly fine. I want people to have their own opinions and their own beliefs. And maybe they convince me a certain way. I'm never against that. Okay. It's the untold story of Elvis Presley's one true love and the child he never knew. Written by well-known writer Desiree Matera and Lucy de Barbin in 1987, the same year that Priscilla's son, Navarone, was born. Now, without doubt, it's the best romantic story ever written about Elvis at age 18 and his love at that early time. Now, the locations and dates are all accurate, even a poem that Elvis wrote under the title Desiree and was given to Lucy in 1973 is very authentic, as I have reviewed Elvis's handwriting many times. The book's name is Are You Lonesome Tonight? And it's a great read if you're a romantic. Basically, the story is Elvis had a daughter called Desiree before Elvis was with Anita Wood. But only Lucy and Elvis knew about it and kept it a secret for 24 years, as Elvis never mentioned it to any of his family, including his former wife, Priscilla. Okay. So I'm going to stop right there real quick. I think Andrew might have mentioned, might be saying that Lucy and Elvis had a relationship. It says that basically the story is Elvis had a daughter called Desiree, and only Elvis and Lucy knew about it and kept it a secret. Elvis wasn't aware of a potential daughter until 1977, or right before his death, according to Lucy. So I'm just going to stop right there. And I think it might just be a typo. Okay, but regardless, you can all decide, but anything is possible in life. Okay? Elvis and Priscilla married on May 1st, 1967 at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas. They honeymooned in Palm Springs before returning to Memphis on May 4th. They spent 3 weeks on their private ranch near the Mississippi border, and exactly 9 months after their wedding, Priscilla was pregnant, and their lives began to change completely. So I think Andrew brought that up because he says anything is possible. Sheila Ryan said Elvis had this mania that babies may spring up suddenly. That's why I left him for another man. This is probably the best time to bring up a story about Elvis that relates here. It's about the Lucy and... So I'm not quite sure whether that would relate there, but I do think, though, I got to agree that Elvis might have been concerned. Look, I guess to go back, maybe Elvis had contracted something at some point when he was younger. Maybe. It's not against the what do they call it, the realm of reality, that when Elvis was out there, that everybody has weaknesses, and everybody sometimes, everybody probably most everybody has something that they've done in their past. I don't want to speak for everybody. Most everybody has something or a lot of things they've done in their past that maybe is against the character of what they believe in. I believe Elvis being, a romantic, Elvis being physical and having physical needs back then, maybe sowed some wild oats for real when he was on the road and when he was 18 to 21, 22. Maybe he contracted something that would have made him fearful the rest of his life of catching something. And then there's stories out there that there was potential people that claimed pregnancies and that Colonel Parker took care of it without Elvis knowing about it. But Elvis might have heard about it later on because Parker might have used it against him. So I don't know. And we are going to revisit the Are You Lonesome tonight. Like I said, I've been doing a great deal of research on it lately. Just to, for me, trying to vindicate Lucy. To separate it from whether or not Desiree is even Elvis's daughter. It's more about the book, more about trying to vindicate Lucy as not somebody psycho and crazy that the estate and Priscilla did. That's what they said. They basically gaslighted her. Now, y'all gonna have your opinions, and some of y'all don't believe it, and that's perfectly fine. Maybe what I present will make you believe it, or believe in the reality, the possibility of it, and maybe not, but I'm still gonna do it. And for those that truly believe in it, I'm trying to give you all some self-defense too on it. But regardless, I appreciate Andrew bringing that up as, a possibility. And one of the possibilities of Elvis's fears that maybe he thought that she could have had a child, but she never told him earlier in, because once we get in the book, you're going to see they had many conversations. She had children, and he asked for names and ages. So maybe he thought maybe one of those children are mine, but she would tell me if it was, but maybe he always wondered. Who knows? And that may be what Andrew's alluding to. So as we continue to talk about Priscilla and kind of look at her background, that's what Andrew's trying to do here. Separate Priscilla and Elvis as people. Lisa Marie was born on February 1st, 1968. Priscilla, concerned that it might disrupt their newfound intimacy and her original plans of wealth and freedom, in her personal desires, completely reported an untruth in her new memoir that it was Elvis that suggested an abortion. She considered the abortion first, and when Elvis declined, Priscilla started riding her horse, Domino, that Elvis presented her in order to possibly obtain a miscarriage. Now, luckily, nothing happened as Elvis wanted a child, and especially Lisa Marie. Also, Elvis, as Priscilla stated at the time, wanted a separation. Elvis actually said, if you have an abortion, I'm going to send you back to your parents. We will have to separate. Luckily, again, nothing happened. While Elvis was filming Live a Little, Love a Little in 1968, Priscilla began private dance lessons and developed a brief, romantic relationship with her instructor that she referred to as Mark, but who was actually Steve. More likely, Priscilla did not want to reveal his real name, which would make sense, as she personally took him to Elvis's comeback special concert. She had said that she was upstairs in the rafters watching the whole show with him. Of course, Elvis was such a magnificent entertainer that Steve must have got cold feet to even stand up to Elvis, and he immediately, upon coming back, appointed Priscilla a new dance instructor. He's like, I'm not going there. That man is a Greek god. No wonder Priscilla had said she regretted this affair. Now, all media reports say that despite affairs on both sides, the early years of their marriage were reportedly happy. However, following Elvis's 1968 television special, his career resurged and he spent increasing time touring and performing in Las Vegas while Priscilla was alone. Now, 2 points here. Andrew says, my research shows that Elvis could not cheat in marriage due to his upbringing and religious background. He could not want to break any of the 10 Commandments as he wanted to reunite with his mother, Gladys. Secondly, Priscilla was completely unreligious. She even had some of Elvis's religious books burned by Colonel Parker. Well, with Colonel Parker. She could do whatever she wanted in marriage, and there was no restraint, as she says, that I wanted my life, not just Elvis's. She did have many girlfriends in Graceland and men admirers, as she was an attractive person. They went shopping, to theaters, only Lisa Marie kept her freedom in check. Unfortunately, some will not believe that they were both definitely in love with each other at that time, as Elvis forgave Priscilla for her regretted affair. He told his team, don't follow her, she will learn by her mistakes. Also, Elvis and Priscilla did bond in their 4-year courtship. Priscilla would tell you that it was definitely the best part of the whole life that she had with Elvis, and that the wedding was her best moment. But here's the catch. They were both incompatible. Very true, they were both incompatible. Priscilla should have supported her husband in his entertainer and endeavor, and really his spiritual endeavor, I'll add there. You know, you gotta believe and want what the other does. You don't necessarily have to, well, you have to in order for it to work. You have to have some belief in it or respect in it, or it's not gonna work. And Priscilla should have supported her husband in his entertainer endeavor. Elvis did support Priscilla as he adored her daughter, Lisa Marie, as a father should, with kindness, love, and lots of gifts. But Priscilla had her own agenda. She wanted to be as famous as Elvis, even more, which makes some sense. We know, talked about Bridget Cruz. Priscilla wanted to obtain the Queen of Rock and Roll, which she ain't. It would be Tina Turner or somebody else, But she wanted to obtain that because she thinks she's the Queen of Rock and Roll. But she was also very jealous of Elvis's lady admirers. She knew who he was when marrying him, but could not understand that they were pursuing him and not Elvis pursuing them. In the Elvis movie, Colonel Parker was seen saying, as Elvis was kissing the ladies at his concert, "There is no way she can compete with him." Priscilla's eyes were with jealousy and revenge at the time, so the marriage broke up because of the incompatibility in a very confused Priscilla. Compatibility in marriage is vital for longevity in marriage. Being soulmates is also important, as Anna Margaret was with Elvis. Elvis with her would have had a normal, long life, as she was married to Roger Smith for 50 years without a divorce. And that's a very good point that Andrew makes there. Anna Margaret was the staying kind. Priscilla, as we've seen in her history, is the leaving kind, the unfaithful kind, the unsatisfied kind. And maybe it's not her fault. Maybe it's the fault of her raising, of her mother, of her father passing away, of her stepfather being a teetotaler and reportedly abusive in some ways, whether that's physical, mentally, emotional, or the way that Michael Edwards abused Lisa. I don't know. We don't know. We're never going to know. Unless she writes a tell-all book to make a bunch of money and makes those claims. And if she makes those claims, are we going to believe her? Because she doesn't seem to be very honest and accurate about some of the other stuff. But as Andrew did say, Andrew believes that Elvis and Priscilla were in love. I believe that Elvis was in love with the idea of who he thought Priscilla was, and so he acted accordingly. That's what I believe. I don't believe Elvis was in love. I believe Elvis always gave people second chances, no matter who it was. Look at the story of Hamburger James. Not his lover, obviously. Not his wife, not his girlfriend. This guy broke into his room, or had access to it, stole his box that had $10,000 in cash, all of his medicine pills, and had pictures of Priscilla, which I think were intimate photos. I think that's what the story says. And they tracked him down at an airport, broke through the airport with badges, went out on the tarmac, pulled this guy off the plane, brought him back to the airport, took him back to the hotel suite, and according to the stories, Elvis was furious, and he either took a glove or took his hand and backhanded him again. And before long, they were both crying. Elvis was begging for forgiveness to this guy for slapping him silly with a glove or with his hand. Amber James was apologizing. And then Elvis was like, if you want to stay, you can stay. You can have a second chance. According to the story, Hamburger James didn't want the second chance. He probably just wanted to get out of there. He knew he'd betrayed Elvis. But what I'm saying is that Elvis believed in second chances. He believed in the best of people. He would see the best in folks. And with Priscilla having the affair, Elvis was aware of it. And he believed in a second chance for that. Probably because he understood her being younger and being older, that she hadn't, he believed that she hadn't sowed some wild oats. But if he would have known that perhaps she had sowed wild oats with Curry Grant and a lot of other guys in the past, long before him, and even maybe during him, if she was intimate, perhaps at 18 too, with somebody else, and during the marriage, besides Steve Peck, if there was other people, Elvis was misled. I don't believe Priscilla was ever in love with Elvis. I believe she was in love with the money and the idea that she was going to be a queen and she was going to be famous and she was comfortable and she had money to spend and she thought that it was going to, she probably had these dreams of doing even more and more and more, and she knew she was pretty young and she's biding her time. I don't believe that there was ever true love between them. I believe that like I said, there was the idea. Priscilla thought Elvis could have been different or was going to be different. And Elvis thought Priscilla was a different person. He was in love with that image that she had saved herself for him. And so he was willing to maybe forgive some momentary lapse of morality or insanity because of her age. That's what I believe. And maybe y'all can tell me what you think about that. And Andrew will let me know as well. And then, of course, maybe they were in love. Regardless of those circumstances there. Maybe it's what felt like love to them. But it surely didn't end up good, did it? And I was kind of talking about Anne Margaret being the staying kind and Priscilla being the leaving kind. And, Andrew's last statement that Elvis with her, being Anne Margaret, would have a normal long life as she was married to Roger Smith for 50 years without a divorce. So anyways, thanks again for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I am stuffed and about 20 minutes away from watching a TV show called Stranger Things with my 18-year-old and my wife and my younger son who's 10. And we're going to sit down here and watch our TV over there that I put one up on the wall, folks. And if I edit this video in any ways, I'll show a picture of it. But I put one on the wall I'd had in my closet for like 2 years. It was a 75-inch, really big. I need to be able to see a TV, okay? I'd wanted it as a surprise, and I thought, this is great. I'll fix the garage up, hang it on the wall. But when I hung it up on the wall, this is what it looked like. So I had to get a different one. All right, TCB, TLC. Till next time, this is Joe Sins Wherever's Photos. God bless all of y'all, and I enjoy being back on the air with y'all, and excited to bring some new folks onto the channel. Some folks you're gonna love to hear from Elvis's world, shortly. Okay, till next time.